what are some signs it's time to give up on a series, whether it's partially published or maybe you haven't published anything yet and it's still a work in progress, but you're kind of starting to second guess whether or not it's worth keeping going given how much work it can be?
Yeah, that's a really good question. First of all, like my sort of stance on partially published series is that you should, if you've started a series, you should really complete it. There are definitely exceptions to the rule and all of that, but my sort of general stance on it is if you've started to publish it and it's got a readership, it's a pretty risky move to just not finish it, because what you're essentially doing is telling your readers who have stuck with you through what might have been a difficult series for you, you're telling them that there's a chance when you write something new, you won't complete that. And it's sort of breaking their trust a little bit. It's sort of telling them that you can't be relied on to finish the stories that you start. And it's not really rewarding those people who have stuck with you. When you have started publishing to just not finish a series, it'll leave readers feeling burnt and they might not then read the stuff that you publish in future. So with that, I would say if it's possible to wrap up the series, like say you've planned for a 10 book series, but on book 4, you think it's no good, whether that's because of poor sales, whether it's because of poor reviews, or you emotionally just cannot do it anymore, I would say try and write a final book and wrap it up as best you can so that it does have an end. And I do talk about that in How to Write a Successful Series. There's a chapter on exit and expansion strategies. So, before you start writing, and this isn't necessarily outlining, but having a general plan. So if, say, you decided you wanted to write a 9-book series, potentially planning that series in linked trilogies, so that if you get to the end of the first trilogy and it's either not going so well financially, or you've decided you don't like it anymore, you're starting to resent it, you have that sort of exit strategy where you could potentially wrap it up after 3, or you could wrap it up after 6. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, like having expansion strategies, so that say I decided I wanted to write a trilogy, but it goes gangbusters and it's doing amazing, having a sort of open loop within that first trilogy to then expand on that story is a really good strategy to have. But yeah, going back to potentially giving up, if it's a work in progress, maybe you've started to resent the story, maybe it's become really painful to write because of life, maybe there's other stuff going on in your life that it's made making this series really hard, then it might be time to set it aside. I think if you're feeling resentful, if it's making you down and depressed, if it's affecting you in a big way like that, maybe it's time to set it aside. And giving up isn't necessarily giving up for good. It can be that you put that book in a drawer for a couple of months, a year, more, and then you can return to it later. Or maybe you can take what you've done and put it into something new further down the line. I would just say that, no series is going to be easy. It's never going to be easy the whole way through. But I suppose if it is something that's causing you constant anxiety or grief, then it might be time to put it away.